Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday to you. Hopefully, everyone's had a good start to the week, and hopefully, everyone took care of themselves over this past weekend. My message on Saturday talked about self care and taking care of the body, the mind, and the spirit, and how important it is for us as we continue to move through this COVID-19 situation that we're dealing with. So, hopefully, everyone took advantage of that over the weekend, and you've instilled a plan that carries you throughout the week, where you're continuing to take care of your body, mind, and spirit, and you're continuing to renew and refresh yourself as you go through these challenging times. And speaking of these challenging times, this morning I just want to talk a little bit about what I call the process of going through something like this, the process of dealing with a crisis like we're dealing with right now. And I think we need to understand that there are normal reactions that we're going to have to this, and once we know that these things are normal, then we know how to move through as we continue to deal with this. And when a crisis hits, and when this pandemic hit, I think one of the things we could all say is it caught most of us by surprise. Okay, and so when you're dealing with a crisis, one of the first emotions you'll feel, one of the first things that happens is you have a sense of fear. You have a sense of fear because of the unknown. So when this crisis hit us, when this pandemic hit us, there's so many unknowns out there, and it was driving the fear. And a lot of our reactions at that time, especially at the beginning of a crisis, is we're reacting on emotion because we don't have a lot of information. So we allow our emotions to kind of take charge, and I think we all know that at times that can be a little dangerous, and that's on both sides. You can get a little bit too high sometimes, and maybe go beyond what reality is, and sometimes you can go definitely too low. And so in those initial stages of a crisis, you're really it's emotions that's driving you. And so some of the decisions you make, some of the things that you do during that time, they may seem kind of scattered. It may seem like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do in this situation. I'm afraid. I don't know what direction to go in, and that's normal. That's normal for all of us, because again, you don't have as much information. You don't understand exactly what's going on. All you know is, I woke up and I'm in the middle of a storm, and I don't know how to process this. So, as you move through the crisis and you get into it and things become a little clearer, then you start to not act on emotion so much, and now you're starting to act on the information that you're receiving. And so, you start moving through that crisis, and now, okay, we've been in this for a little bit. We've been in this storm. All right, I'm understanding a little more. I see things a little differently. All right, there's some factual information that's coming my way, and now I'm in that stage where I'm starting to manage the crisis, and I'm starting to say, okay, all right, this is not as bad as I thought it was, or maybe it's worse than I thought it was. But either aspect, you're acting on information that you're receiving now, and you're understanding a little bit more about the crisis that you're in. And so you start to make decisions differently. Your decisions aren't the same as they were when you started out in the crisis and you were acting, strictly or mainly on emotions. Now you're starting to make some fact-based decisions, and you're starting to look at, okay, how do I protect myself? How do I protect my family? How do I still provide? What are the things I should or should not do? And you start to, get a little calm within the storm, because you're starting to understand more about the situation you're in. And I think many of us are in that situation right now. I think many of us are in that area of the storm where we're really acting off of more information, and it's helping in many cases to calm some of the fear as you start to act on the information that's out there. You start to make decisions based on that, more than just your emotions. And then you get to a place where you start to look at the situation and then figure out, okay, how can I grow through this situation? How can I grow in this situation that I've been put in, that I didn't know was coming, completely caught me off guard. I started out scared, I started out fearful. I started to then get some more information about this. I started to navigate the storm a little bit, but now I just don't want to navigate the storm. I actually want to grow, through the storm, and I want to come out on the other side of the storm, learning some lessons and a better person. And I think that's the part, that makes it to where when we get on the other side of the storm, we can look back and we can look at the lessons that we learned. We can look at everything that happened and how we grew through it and how our family grew through it and the different things that came from that. And the only way to get to that phase is you have to move through those other ones. So you got to move through that initial phase where you're more fearful and acting on emotions than anything else, and then you move into the phase where you start to make decisions based off of factual information that you're getting, and you start to really kind of navigate the storm and you manage through the crisis, and then you get to that phase where you're actually making something positive happen out of this storm. You're making something positive happen for you and for your family, through this crisis that you did not create on your own. And for me, as I look through this, it's where I try to go. It's how I try to navigate through, how I try to manage and grow while I'm in this crisis. And I had to understand that it is a process. I had to understand that there are different phases that you're going to go through, and you have to allow yourself to go through those phases, and you have to grow through those phases. And at the end of this, the hope, and I've talked about this before, is that all of us can look back and say, you know what, I did not ask for this crisis. I did not ask, to be in this COVID-19 situation, but I've seen so much growth in myself and in my family and in my coworkers and my friends. And that's where you want to be when we get on the other side of this. So ask yourself today, how are you navigating through this crisis? How are you moving through this crisis? Are you still in that initial phase where you're operating, off of strictly emotions and fear and the unknown? Or have you moved into that phase where you're starting to manage this crisis and you're looking at the information that's out there and you're making fact-based decisions for you and your family? Or have you moved on and you're now in that process where you're like, okay, I've gone through the fear stage and the emotions, and I'm managing the crisis, my family's doing well, I'm doing well. Now I'm looking for how we can grow through this crisis. So ask yourself today where you're at in that pathway of dealing with a crisis. And ask yourself how you can move on if you're stuck in one stage, if you've been there for a while. What is it that you need to do so you can move to the next phase? And then once you move to that next phase, you can continue to grow through this process. So, I just ask you to do that, take some time, reflect, and at the end of the day, I think what we all want to do is we want to be able to look back on this and see how we've grown and see how we've taken something that started out as a negative, that started out really playing with our emotions, and we actually used it to grow ourselves and our families. So enjoy your Tuesday. Have a truly blessed day. Evolution of self. Don't forget, take care of your body, mind, and spirit every day, so you can continue to go through this thing and grow through this thing. Love you guys. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.